using the English dictionary definition. It kind of means random, although random has a very specific mathematical meaning. The definition of a haphazard sample is one that has no particular basis. We didn't go out and pick them for any particular reason. So it has the sense of a random sample without having that particular mathematical definition. And the Category 1 schools, we've talked about a little bit on this chart. On page 19, you will see a very handy reference chart that will show you what the count was, where the school was, what the variation was from the July FTE variance, and as well as the September FTE variance, and has the EMIS count in there as well. Further detail is available behind that. We have a chart for each set of categories, and then beginning on page 30, we go into the school level data, which includes not only what we found, but what the responses were. So in the Dayton City School District, we at the Dayton Technology Design High School, as an example. We counted 43 people there. The July FTE count for ODE was 129. So that's a 75% variation. The ODE FTE count in September was 146. So, immediately prior to our October 1st count. When we went in, the director indicated that our count was probably low because it was 8:35 in the morning and students come in late. So to check, we went back on November 12th at closer to 9 o'clock when the students, according to the director, come in more frequently. And we had 60 students on that day. Still a dramatic variation from the numbers used for funding by ODE. On page 36, we have we went in at St. Albans, which is the sponsor of the Life Skills Academy in Cincinnati, County. We had a head count of 22 as against a July FTE of 120. That's a pretty big variation. We were told that kids don't tend to come in the morning, they're here in the afternoon. So we came back at 10 till 3 and there wasn't anybody in the school. So does that mean something is necessarily fraudulent going on here? We can't conclude that from the work that we did. What we can conclude, though, is that the numbers that the state is relying on to make funding decisions seem to not be terribly accurate. As you will see, going through the rest of these pages, there are schools that do pretty well. Their numbers are pretty close to what they report to ODE, and that's what we found in the school when we went. We found some significant variations in other places. Now that raises another question that I can't answer today. Are 100% of the kids showing up 50% of the time? Or are 50% of the kids not showing up hardly at all? That's an answer that we probably need to answer. We need to know the answer to that question. Think about this for a second with me. If the issue is we have a particularly difficult population with dropout recovery programs, and we do, then I would expect to see something closer to all the kids there 50% of the time. Clearly there's going to be a few that don't show up much at all and some that show up quite a bit. But if that's the problem, if the problem is the particular population, dropouts, folks that are socioeconomically disadvantaged, maybe don't have much of a support system in their life, I would expect attendance to be spotty everywhere. On the other hand, if we have half the students that are there quite a bit, and then a bunch of students that are hardly there at all, that has a different, we would have to draw different conclusions from that, wouldn't we? Because then we have different experiences based on the same population set. One of the things that anecdotally we found in our interviews, this is not numbers, I don't have anything other than interviews that back this up, is that a number of the kids show up for school because it eliminates the seek work requirement for certain benefits like TANF, temporary assistance to needy families. So if you have an 18, 19-year-old who's a dropout and they're enrolled in charter school, then they are relieved of certain responsibilities that they would otherwise have to fulfill under the eligibility requirements. Now, when you combine that with the regulatory structure that requires a mandatory withdrawal at 105 hours of non-attendance, you can see that you might have a subpopulation in some of these schools that shows up in September when the count happens, and then they don't come to school for 3 weeks. And then when they get close to the time that they're going to be withdrawn, and therefore their eligibility requirements are going to change, they can come back to school for a little while. And then they can leave for another 3 weeks until they bump up again against the 105 hours. Now, how prevalent is that? I have no idea. What I can tell you is that we heard that from more than one school administrator during our interviews. And certainly, even if it's not widespread, I think it points up a real problem with the existing regulatory system. And at its worst, could mean that we are adding the roughly $6,000 a year cost of a charter school enrollment on top of the benefits that might accrue to that student. That would be a perverse result, obviously, from the intention of these laws.